The ice did not crack. It listened. Beneath a pale sky, a frozen valley lay still as if the world itself was holding its breath. Snow drifted down in slow, careful flakes. No wind touched the ground. No sound broke the quiet. In the center of the valley, a wide circle of dark shapes stood unmoving. They were dragons, but they did not look fierce. Their wings were folded tight. Their long necks were bowed. Their eyes were dim, fixed on the ice below their feet. This place had once been warm. Long ago, heat flowed through the valley like a hidden river. The dragons had chosen it for their nesting ground because the ice there was gentle, thin, and alive. Their hatchlings had rested beneath it, wrapped in soft warmth, waiting for the day they would rise. The pack had sung to them through the ice, low and steady songs meant to guide new hearts into the world. Then the storm came. It arrived without warning. The sky twisted with strange light. The ground shook as unseen forces pulled heat away from the land. In a single night, the valley froze deeper than it ever had before. The ice grew thick and hard, sealing everything beneath it. When the storm passed, the songs had no answer. Now the dragon stood in silence. The leader of the pack, Veilthrix, lowered his massive head until his horns almost touched the ground. His scales, once bright with inner fire, were dull and cold. He could feel nothing beneath the ice. No movement. No warmth. Only emptiness that pressed against his chest like heavy stone. Other packs would have raged. They would have burned the ice and shattered the valley. This pack did not. They knew the truth. Sudden fire could destroy fragile life. If even one hatchling still lived, wild heat would end it. So they waited. Time passed in slow, painful moments. Snow built up along their backs. Frost formed on their wings. Still they did not move. Grief weighed on them, deep and quiet. Dragons did not cry like humans. Their sorrow showed in the way their fire faded, in the way their breathing slowed, in the way their songs died in their throats. Far beyond the valley, a single figure moved through the snow. Arvin Holt walked with careful steps, his boots sinking into soft drifts. He was a human explorer, sent to map cold regions that others avoided. His suit hummed softly, keeping the worst of the cold away, but the silence around him felt heavier than the ice. His sensors flickered, confused by strange readings in the air. Heat levels did not make sense. The land felt wrong, like it was holding something back. Arvin stopped and looked ahead. At first he thought the dark shapes were rocks. Then one of them moved. His breath caught in his throat. He lowered himself slowly, heart pounding, eyes wide. Dragons. Not one or two but many. Old stories flashed through his mind. Fire. Death. Cities burned from the sky. His hands trembled, but he did not run. Something about them felt different. They were not watching him. They were watching the ground. Arvin took a slow step forward, then another. Each movement felt loud in the quiet world. The nearest dragon turned its head slightly. A single eye, deep and ancient, met his gaze. Arvin froze. He raised his hands, palms open, showing he carried no weapon. His scanner slipped from his fingers and sank into the snow. The dragon did not attack. Instead it looked back down at the ice. Arvin swallowed and followed its gaze. The ice beneath the pack was smooth and thick, but his suit sensors began to pulse. Faint readings appeared on his display. Weak heat. Not strong enough to be active life, but not empty either. His heart skipped. He dropped to his knees and brushed snow away from the surface. The ice was colder than it should have been, drained by something unnatural. He pressed his glove against it and felt nothing, yet the readings stayed. Someone's there, he whispered, though no one answered. Veilthrix felt something stir. Not beneath the ice but within himself. The human's presence did not feel like threat or hunger. It felt like focus, care. The kind of attention a hatchling received when it first broke free from shell and snow. The pack shifted slightly, creating space. No dragon spoke. They watched. Arvin worked slowly, carefully. He adjusted his tools, setting them to the lowest heat output. He knew ice could be cruel. Too much warmth would shock whatever lay beneath. He traced lines across the surface, searching for the thinnest points, the places where warmth might still linger. Minutes passed. Then longer. A faint pulse appeared on his scanner. So weak it almost vanished. Arvin's breath shook. "You're still there?" he said softly. Above him the dragons leaned closer. Veilthrix felt it too now. A thread of warmth, distant but real. His chest tightened with something he had not felt since the storm. Hope. Small, fragile, dangerous. The valley remained silent, but the silence had changed. Snow continued to fall, yet the ice below seemed to listen more closely. A human knelt in the frozen heart of dragon sorrow, unaware that the moment had already begun to change the memory of two worlds. Nothing was freed yet. Nothing was saved. But beneath the ice, something waited. And for the first time since the storm, the dragons did not feel alone. The sound came first, soft and wrong like ice breathing. The dragon pack froze as one. Their heads lifted. Their wings tightened. The valley had been silent for so long that even a small noise felt dangerous. Snow slid from high cliffs in thin lines. Beneath the ice, something shifted, then stopped. At the edge of the valley, a small human stood alone. His name was Iron Soul, and every part of him said he should run. His heart hammered hard inside his chest. His legs felt tight and ready to flee. The cold burned his face, but fear burned deeper. He had seen the shapes from far away and told himself they were shadows. Now he knew the truth. Dragons. They were larger than any story. Their bodies curved like mountains. Their eyes glowed low and tired, not sharp or hungry. They did not roar. They did not rise into the sky. They simply watched him. Iron took one slow step back, then stopped. Running would wake the fear in them. He knew that much. Fear made mistakes. Fear killed things that did not need to die. So he stayed where he was, his breath white in the air, his hands open and low. One dragon shifted forward. Ice cracked under its weight. The sound echoed across the valley like a warning. Iron swallowed and lowered himself to his knees. The snow soaked through his suit, but he did not care. Kneeling felt right. It made him smaller. Less dangerous. He bowed his head, not in weakness but in respect. The old lessons from deep space training came back to him. Unknown life did not always want conquest. Sometimes it wanted understanding. The dragon stopped moving. Its name, among its kind, was Korthuan, and it had not trusted a living thing since the storm. Many species had passed through this region in the past. Some had tried to study the valley. Others had tried to take it. All had brought noise, machines, and sharp heat. None had listened. This human was different. Korthuan lowered his head just enough to look closer. The human trembled but did not rise. His thoughts were loud in the open air, not hidden or sharp. They were simple. Fear. Wonder. Care. Korthuan felt the ice beneath his claws. Cold. Too cold. But beneath that, faint and weak, there was still something. A memory of warmth. A life that refused to fade. Iron lifted his head slowly. He dared to look at the dragon's face. The eyes were old, filled with loss. Not anger. Loss looked the same across the stars, he realized. It bent shoulders. It dimmed light. It made even the strongest being stand still. His scanner vibrated softly at his side. He reached for it, then paused. He did not want to move too fast. When he did pick it up, he did so with care, showing the tool openly. The dragons did not react. The screen lit up with weak signals. So weak they almost vanished. Iron's breath caught. He adjusted the range, narrowed the scan, slowed it down. The signal remained. Alive. Barely, but alive. Iron looked at the ice, then back at the dragons. He did not know their language, but he did not need words. He placed his gloved hand over his chest, then pointed gently toward the ice. His other hand moved in a slow circle, meaning time. Patience. Korthuan understood. He gave a low sound, deep and steady. Not a roar. A call. The other dragons shifted closer, forming a wide circle around the human. They did not trap him. They protected the space. Iron felt the air change. The fear eased just a little. He moved closer to the ice, brushing snow away with his hands. He could feel the cold even through the suit. This was no natural freeze. Something had stolen the heat, drained it deep. He activated a small tool no larger than his palm. It released a thin wave of gentle warmth, barely stronger than sunlight. He moved it slowly across the surface, watching the readings change. The signal pulsed once. Then again. One of the dragons released a sharp breath. Another lifted its head, eyes brightening just a little. Korthuan felt it clearly now. A hatchling. Small. Weak. Alive. Iron smiled before he could stop himself. He did not cheer. He did not shout. He simply stayed quiet and worked. He traced lines where the ice was thinnest. He avoided places where the readings faded. He knew life could break easily when rushed. Time stretched. Snow fell heavier. Iron's knees ached. His fingers grew stiff. Still he did not stop. The dragons watched every movement, their trust fragile but growing. This human did not take. He did not command. He waited. At last, a soft crack sounded beneath the tool. The ice did not break open. It softened. A faint warmth touched Iron's glove. Something moved below. Korthuan lowered his head until it hovered over the spot. His breath warmed the air, careful and controlled. Together, dragon and human held the moment steady. Iron pulled his hand back and sat still. The next step would matter. Too soon and it would end. Too late and it might fade. The human who did not run stayed in the snow, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the ice. Around him, dragons who had forgotten hope leaned closer, listening to the smallest sign of life. The valley was no longer empty. It was waiting. The ice changed its voice. Iron felt it before he saw it. The tool in his hand gave a soft pulse, slower than before, deeper. The reading did not rise much, but it stayed steady. That mattered more. Life did not need strength first. It needed time. The dragons watched in silence. They were used to seeing the world in wide shapes and strong forces. Eat, wind, fire, flight. They felt large changes easily. Small changes were harder. Too small to trust. Too quiet to believe. Humans were different. Iron noticed the small things because his kind had learned to survive by them. He noticed how the ice near the signal did not shine the same way. It was dull, almost tired. He noticed how the snow melted there just a breath faster than anywhere else. He noticed how the air felt slightly warmer when he leaned close, like a hidden hand reaching up. He shifted his position slowly, careful not to block the warmth from above. He adjusted the tool again, lowering the output until it was barely active. The goal was not to melt. It was to remind the ice how to let go. Corthuan watched every movement. The dragon's instincts screamed that the ice should be broken, burned away in one strong breath. That was how dragons solved problems. That was how they had always done it. But the memory of the storm still burned inside him. Sudden force had taken everything. He would not repeat that mistake. So he waited. Iron placed the tool down and used his bare glove to touch the ice. Cold pressed hard against his palm, but he held it there. He counted his breaths, slow and steady. 1, 2, 3. The readings changed again just a little. There was movement below. Not strong. Not fast. But real. Iron leaned back and took a slow breath. "You're trying?" he whispered. The dragons did not understand the words, but they felt the meaning. Corthuan felt his chest tighten as the warmth beneath the ice shifted closer to the surface. It was weak, but it was moving toward life. The pack moved closer without thinking. Wings folded tighter. Heads lowered. They formed a wide wall around the human and the ice, blocking the cold wind from the cliffs. Their bodies gave off gentle heat, controlled and shared. Iron noticed that too. He had expected them to stay still, distant. Instead, they adjusted around him, changing the space itself. He did not point or ask. He simply nodded once as if thanking them. He took out a second tool, one meant for rescue work in deep space. It sent low vibrations through solid matter, too soft to cause damage. He set it beside the first and waited for the pattern to match the faint pulse below. The ice responded. A thin line appeared, not a crack, but a seam. It ran like a pale thread across the surface. Snow slid into it and vanished. One of the dragons released a low sound, sharp with fear. Another stepped forward, claws digging into the ground. Corthuan lifted his head and stilled them with a glance. This moment was fragile. Fear would shatter it. Iron did not touch the seam. He leaned close, watching. The readings grew clearer now. He could almost see the shape beneath the ice. Small, curled, breathing slow. A hatchling. He felt tears sting his eyes, surprising him. He wiped them away quickly. This was not the time. He changed the vibration pattern again, softer, slower. The ice softened further, turning cloudy instead of clear. It was giving way without breaking. Beneath it something moved. A small claw pressed upward, weak and shaking. It did not break through. It rested there as if feeling the world above. The dragon pack froze. That claw was smaller than any of them remembered. Fragile. Alive. Corthuan felt a sound rise in his chest, old and forgotten. A song meant for beginnings. He did not release it yet. Not until it was safe. Iron pulled his hands back and sat still. He knew better than to rush the final moment. Air shock could kill. Cold air could steal what little heat remained. The ice was still protecting the hatchling even now. He adjusted the tools one last time, setting them to hold, not change. Minutes passed. Then the seam widened on its own. A soft glow came from below as the hatchling's inner warmth touched the surface. The ice thinned until it looked like glass stretched too far. With a sound like a sigh, it opened. Not shattered. Opened. Warm air rose. The scent of life followed. The hatchling lay there, small and pale, chest moving in shallow breaths. Its eyes were closed. Its body shook from cold and effort. The dragons did not move. They did not trust their strength. Iron moved instead. He slipped his jacket open and leaned forward, placing his body between the hatchling and the cold air. His suit shifted temperature, warming gently. He did not touch the hatchling yet. He let it feel the change first. The tiny chest rose a little stronger. Corthuan lowered his massive head until it hovered just above the ice. He released a breath, warm but steady, wrapping the space in careful heat. The other dragons followed, creating a shared warmth that filled the circle. Iron finally reached out and placed 2 fingers near the hatchling's side, not gripping, not lifting. Just present. The hatchling stirred and made a soft sound. It was enough. The valley felt different now. The cold no longer ruled it. Life had answered. Humans noticed what others could not because they had learned to listen when the world whispered. And because of that, hope had found its way back through the ice. The ice trembled, not with danger, but with life. Iron watched the hatchling slowly rise. Its small wings shivered against the cold, and its eyes blinked open for the first time, faint light reflecting in them. It was fragile, almost too small to survive in this frozen world. Yet it lived. The moment felt sacred. He did not speak. He did not make sudden movements. He simply stayed there, letting warmth and care flow from him like a quiet shield. Above him, the dragons leaned closer. Corthuan's massive head lowered to the hatchling's level. His old eyes examined every detail, the tiny claws, the thin wings, the faint rhythm of breath. Trust was a careful thing. The dragons had lost much before, and they had learned that strength alone could not save life. They had seen it taken too quickly, too violently. Iron sensed their hesitation. He lifted a hand slowly, palm facing up, and touched his chest. It was a human gesture of peace, a promise of no harm. Corthuan tilted his head slightly. The gesture was understood. The dragons shifted, forming a protective circle. They moved without aggression, only presence. The valley seemed to hold its breath. Snowflakes fell silently, each one landing on scales, snow-covered wings, and a human kneeling in the cold. The world had narrowed to this small space. Human, dragons, hatchling, ice, and warmth. Iron reached for the hatchling. He did not grab it. He cupped it gently in his hands, letting the tiny body feel the difference between the ice and his warmth. The hatchling trembled but slowly began to relax. A soft noise escaped its throat, a weak chirp that seemed to echo through the valley like a small heartbeat of hope. Corthuan exhaled, a careful, controlled breath. The other dragons responded, their own heat blending with the humans. A circle of life and care formed. Iron realized that dragons did not need fire to protect. Their presence, their patience could do as much. And in turn, humans could offer the same in ways the dragons had never expected. The ice beneath them had softened further. Snow slid into the cracks and melted gently, almost like it was guided by intention. Iron adjusted the hatchling in his hands and whispered, "You're safe now. You'll grow." He did not know if the dragons could understand words, but intention traveled deeper than language. The hatchling twitched, spreading its tiny wings. Iron kept his hands steady, following each movement. The dragon's eyes followed, each learning in silence. Trust, they realized, could be taught without force. Care could be stronger than claws or fire. The sky above began to lighten slightly. Pale sun filtered through clouds, brushing the valley with soft color. The dragons flexed their wings, still cautious but no longer tense. They were learning that patience did not mean weakness, and that a human's touch could mean life. Iron lowered the hatchling onto the ice slowly, letting it feel the ground under its own strength. It tried to stand. It wobbled. Corthuan exhaled again, a soft heat that made the ice slightly warm. The hatchling steadied itself. The human watched, ready to step in if needed, but it was no longer necessary. Around them, the dragons relaxed, just enough to allow observation. They had lost hope once, but the small human who did not run had shown them something new. Care, attention, patience, all could save what brute force could not. A soft wind rose. Iron brushed snow from his face. "We'll need to move you soon," he said to the hatchling, though his voice was quiet. The dragons seemed to understand. They shifted again, creating a path with their bodies, wings slightly raised like gentle walls of heat. The hatchling took a small hop, encouraged by the warmth. Corthuan lowered his head further, allowing it to climb onto his claw. The movement was careful, deliberate. Iron stepped back. He did not need to act. The dragon and hatchling moved as one, forming a bond in silence. The pack leaned in closer. Their wings brushed the snow softly. Another hatchling stirred beneath a thinner patch of ice. Iron moved gently toward it, ready to repeat the same careful process. The dragon stayed close but did not crowd him. The human had earned space and respect. Trust had been forged not by fear or fire, but by calm, care, and quiet courage. Time seemed to slow. Each movement, each breath was a lesson. The dragons learned patience again. The human learned to follow the rhythm of dragon life. And the hatchlings, fragile and trembling, learned to respond to warmth instead of force. At last all the first hatchlings were free. They stayed close to their mothers and fathers, trembling but alive. Corthuan nudged the human gently with the side of his snout, a gesture of acknowledgement. Iron smiled faintly, understanding. It was not gratitude as humans felt it. It was trust, respect, an understanding that they had shared life in the cold and survived together. The wind carried a soft sound, almost a song rising from the dragons' throats. It was not loud or sharp, but steady and melodic. Iron felt it in his chest, not just with his ears. It was a promise that the dragons would remember this day. That life could be restored with patience, with attention, and with care. He straightened slowly. The dragons parted slightly, allowing him room. The hatchlings nestled near their parents, safe for the first time since the storm. Iron knew he could not stay long. The valley belonged to the dragons. But he had changed it. He had changed them. Corthuan exhaled one last time before moving to the others. His eyes met Iron's for a long moment. No words were needed. The dragons trusted him. And he had proven that humans could act with thought, with patience, and with courage even in the coldest, quietest places. The sun rose higher. Snow sparkled. Ice began to shimmer with gentle heat. Life had returned. The dragons and the human had learned from each other. And in that silent valley, a bond had been forged stronger than fear, stronger than cold, stronger than the storm that had taken so much. Iron watched as the dragons lifted their young and spread their wings. For a moment, he imagined the vast sky above, the warmth of fire, and the quiet power of trust. Then he turned back to the hatchlings still below, knowing that his work was only beginning, but that he would never have to do it alone. Trust had been forged in the cold, and it would last far longer than the ice. The valley was quiet now, but it felt different. Snow fell softly, settling on the dragon's wings and the human shoulders. The hatchlings moved cautiously, testing the warmth of the air, exploring the gentle heat of their parents' scales. Their eyes blinked wide, unafraid for the first time. Life had returned, and the valley seemed to breathe again. Iron knelt in the snow watching them. He felt a strange mix of relief and wonder. He had not expected to find life here, let alone change the fate of a dragon pack. Yet the dragons did not see him as a conqueror or a stranger. They saw him as a helper, a being willing to wait, to care, and to act with patience. Corthuan approached him slowly, careful not to scare the hatchlings. His massive head hovered close to Iron's face. The dragon's breath was warm but controlled, carrying the faint scent of frost and earth. Iron reached out his hand not to touch, but to meet the gesture. Corthuan lowered his snout, a gentle acknowledgement. It was a promise. The pack remembered and they would not forget. The other dragons gathered near. Veilthrix, the leader, spread his wings slightly, creating a protective circle around both Iron and the hatchlings. There was no fear, no tension. Only understanding. The human had shown that even the smallest gestures could hold power. He had taught them patience, care, and trust. Iron smiled softly. "You're safe now," he whispered to the hatchlings. "You'll grow strong. You'll soar high." The hatchlings chirped softly, nudging their parents. One tiny dragon flapped its wings weakly, then tried again more confidently. The dragons watched with pride. Iron knew this was more than survival, it was a beginning. He stood slowly, brushing snow from his jacket. The dragons did not move away. They did not chase him out. Instead, they created a path, their massive bodies forming a corridor through the snow and ice. It was an unspoken invitation. Iron understood. The dragons were offering him a choice. Leave now or stay and witness the future he had helped create. Iron looked at the sky. Pale light filtered through the clouds, reflecting off the ice and snow. Stars would come soon, bright and endless. He thought of all the worlds he had traveled, all the frozen planets and lonely valleys. None had felt like this. Here he had found life, trust, and a bond that crossed species, perhaps even time. He knelt again, gently touching the snow where the hatchlings had first stirred. "Remember this," he said quietly. "I will carry your story with me and I hope you carry mine." Corthuan exhaled softly, a low rumble that vibrated through the snow. It was the closest a dragon could come to understanding human words. The dragon's gaze lingered on Iron, steady and thoughtful. The pack seemed to listen too, as if acknowledging the small human who had braved the cold and shown them care. Slowly, the hatchlings began to move under the dragon's guidance, testing wings and claws, learning the rhythms of life that had been interrupted by the storm. Iron stayed close enough to help if needed, but far enough to let the dragons lead. He had learned that trust was not forcing control, it was knowing when to step back. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the valley. Iron could see the ice beginning to melt gently in places where warmth had returned. The valley was alive again. The dragon's songs rose, soft and melodic, filling the air with vibrations that resonated in Iron's chest. The sounds were not loud, not threatening, but steady and full of memory. He realized then that this valley would remember him. Not as a conqueror or intruder but as a bridge. He had entered a world frozen by loss and sorrow and had left it alive with hope. The dragon's memories would carry his presence across generations. Perhaps, long after he was gone, the hatchlings would tell their young about the human in the snow who did not run. Iron's heart warmed at the thought. He took a step back, then another. The dragons did not chase him. They watched. Corthuan lowered his massive head one last time, and Veilthric spread his wings fully, lifting slightly as if to say goodbye. The other dragons mirrored the gesture. It was not farewell in the human sense. It was a promise. The bond they shared would endure. Iron walked slowly toward the edge of the valley. The hatchlings chirped again, a small chorus that made his chest tighten. He paused, looking back. The dragons had returned to their circle, their eyes glinting in the pale light. Life pulsed through them, strong and careful. He could feel the memory of this moment settling into the ice, the snow, and the dragons themselves. He whispered, "Take care of them. Grow strong. Remember what patience can do." And then he turned fully, leaving footprints in the snow that would soon be covered, but not forgotten. The dragons did not follow. They watched him go, keeping their own watch over the hatchlings. The pack rose slowly, wings stretching wide, creating ripples of warmth that flowed through the valley. Iron glanced once more over his shoulder. The smallest hatchling had lifted its head, looking directly at him as if understanding his presence. He smiled and waved faintly, a gesture that would be carried in memory long after he had gone. The stars began to appear above, one by one, shining in the endless sky. The dragons looked upward, sensing them, feeling them. Somewhere in their memories, Iron's presence was stored. Somewhere in their songs, the story of a human who had faced cold and silence and stayed was written. He walked on, leaving the valley behind but not leaving it empty. Life would continue here. The hatchlings would grow, the dragons would teach them, and the memory of the small human in the snow would remain, a quiet legend. And across the stars, in the worlds humans could reach and those they could not, the story traveled. Not in words, not in paper, but in memory and action. The human who did not run had changed the dragon's world forever. Iron paused at the edge of the snow, looking up at the distant horizon. The valley glimmered beneath the rising light, alive with song, warmth, and life. He breathed in the cold air one last time, carrying it with him in his heart. The dragons lifted into the sky, wings wide, carrying hatchlings carefully beneath them. Their songs rose, steady and full of promise, echoing across the frozen valley. And somewhere deep in the ice, in the snow, and in the hearts of all who had witnessed it, a memory had been made, a memory the stars themselves would keep.